All right, everybody, and hello and thank you. This is No Soundbites Allowed. I am your host, Michael Boss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you. It is January 1st of 2023, the first day of the new year, and I am happy to be here with you, my audience. I love you all. I hope you had a great new year, that it has been safe, that it has been fun. I hope you also enjoyed the new intro music. Please give me your feedback on that. Let me know if that worked out well, if you liked the way that started off. There's so much to talk about. And yes, the audio, I know there's still a little bit of an echo in there. I am working on that. It's somewhere in the software. I can't figure it out. I need a software engineer, and I am not one of them, and I can't figure out what the problem is. But we will endeavor to move forward anyway. I know I was going to take off Sunday today to try and fix that, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to speak with all of you because you're important. Now, if this is the first time you're seeing our channel, every Sunday at 2:30 p.m., we reach out across the world to hear your comments and your tweets, your chats, and your phone calls from anywhere in the world to tell us what you think. And you can also call into 607-242-9247 and to tell us what you think about the issues that are important to you, wherever you are in the world, because the internet overlords do not control your voice, and we want to hear it. We believe in your freedom of speech. So we're going to be addressing a lot of that. Give me a second. And I just want to say again, Happy New Year to everyone out there. I want to remind everyone that we are working with, and you will see, this is 2023, we are going to be sending out to 537 members of Congress our legislation. This is one of the big things that everyone in America is looking for. There's about a recent poll, which we will get to in a little bit. 62% of Americans want to see the elections secured. They want to be confident in our elections, which means we can be confident in our government. And they're looking forward to seeing that. And we're looking to put this bill out, a bill to restore the confidence in elections and stimulate voter participation. It's something we are working on with the Liberty First Foundation, sending it to 537 members of Congress. The link is in the description. You can read this for yourself. If you think that there's something that we've missed, please let us know. This is the framework. This is the skeleton of what we plan to send to Congress, and have them tell us why they think this isn't a good idea. I want to see them pass this or explain to us why this isn't possible, as they are spending $1.7 trillion of your money to give $200 million to Pakistan to try and make Pakistan woke, while we are spending money for the government of Jordan, not only for their government to run, but for them to enforce their borders, even as the United States borders are open and Jordan is one of the richest countries in the world. These are the things that we need to talk about, because this doesn't make any sense. And we have seen that throughout 2022, there are problems in our government all over the place on our lack of leadership. And the answer to that is not more failure from our leadership. It is they need to have a plan. They need to let everyone know what the plan is. They have to execute on that plan. These are the important things. And I know a lot of people have hangovers tonight. They're still tired, but we want to take the opportunity, even with bad audio, and I know there's audio issues, to still address these issues, because it is never too soon. And the flaws that we have, that this channel has, does not take away from the fact that the bigger flaw is to not speak up, to not be heard. Even if it's imperfect, it is better to speak up than to be silent and to have this lack of leadership affect all of our lives so negatively. I mean, this is the reason why. How did North Korea introduce the new year? They sent off a bunch of missiles. Hello, Jan. Thank you for being here with us. I hope the audio isn't too bad. Jan, I want everyone to know. For the end of 2022, the beginning of the new year, New Year's Eve, what did North Korea do? They fired 3 ballistic missiles, okay? And the United States, for their part, decided to tell everyone it's no big deal. This is not, and this is coming from the BBC News. Washington, D.C. said that the latest missile launches, which are the 75th missile that has been fired by North Korea at South Korea and Japan, threatening our allies, is not an immediate threat. How can it not be an immediate threat? In fact, when they said that, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said North Korea's ballistic missiles launch is a grave provocation that undermines peace and stability in the Korean Peninsula as well as the international community. How can you have something that is threatening international peace and say that it is not a problem, that it poses no concern to the public? This is what the Biden-Harris administration and Democrats and progressives are telling us. This isn't a big deal. Don't worry about it. Are you kidding me? This is China is using North Korea as their puppet government to try and instill fear in Southeast Asia, to undermine the United States and the international policies that we have had, like the treaty between the United States and Japan that has existed since 1960, unchanged, where the United States has provided the military protection of South Korea and to Japan, and no one trusts us anymore. That's why Japan is building its own army. It's why we are seeing a military escalation in Southeast Asia. It is going to be the second world regional war, probably within the next year to 2 years, that we are seeing that this is building up. International stability and peace are disappearing. And the Biden-Harris administration saying, it's all fine. You just don't understand. It's great. Things are fine. There's no problem here. South Korea thinks there's a problem. Japan knows there's a problem. And no one is counting on the United States to step up, which is exactly what China wants, because China is in charge. And that is a problem. Something that Australia, South Korea, Japan, all of Southeast Asia, the United States, and the rest of the world, they all recognize this. Let me go to the comments. So Mike Bowie says, Happy New Year. The sound is better. Good. I'm glad that the sound is better. I am working on that. Jan says, as usual, the administration doesn't want you to look at what's important. Hence, everything is fine. And that's the problem, folks. See, we've been addressing things on this channel every year for well over a decade, almost 2 decades now, in political commentary, talking about the things that the media doesn't want to discuss. Notice, this is coming from the BBC News, not from NBC, not ABC, not MSNBC, not CBS. They don't want to talk to you about this. It's kind of like the Twitter files. They are pretending it doesn't exist. It's like the Hunter Biden laptop. It doesn't exist. The 450 charges that have been investigated, the investigations from the FBI that led to 450 charges pending on Hunter Biden. Well, they don't want to talk about that, so it doesn't exist. Instead, they want to talk about things like George Santos, which we will discuss. They want to talk about things like no bail reform, where there is no bail anymore, and not the consequences of that, which we will discuss. They want to talk about spending more and more of your money without any consideration of inflation and how that's affecting your life and jobs and how you live. We can't do that. We have to go forward realizing that these are serious problems that need to be addressed. We need a plan. And if we are starting 2023 without a plan, if we don't have a resolution to make things better, if we're just playing the same political game, everybody loses. Not just the United States, not just Republicans and conservatives. Everybody around the world is losing because we aren't doing the right thing. We're not standing up, we're not leading, and we're not giving anyone a reason to trust our leadership. And that is important. And that's why we are going to propose, and as we mentioned, we're working with the Liberty First Foundation to put out this piece of legislation because the public gets to write laws, not corporations, not special interest groups. The corporations aren't the ones who lead, the public does. So we're going to do that because we can't keep having North Korea sending off 75 missiles in a year, saying that at any moment, either on purpose or by accident, they're going to attack Japan and or South Korea, our allies, and drag us into a regional war. This is affecting your life here in the United States and around the world. This is about global stability. And we know that the Biden-Harris administration continues in 2023, like in 2022 and 2021. They want to have the Iran nuclear deal. That is still on the table. Even though Iran is killing its own citizens, they are killing young women for exposing their hair. They are capturing and punishing and imprisoning their sports players, in particular football players, for being at a party where women happen to be at the party at the same time as men. This is the kind of draconian government Iran wants the entire world to live under. And the Biden-Harris administration is happy to try and work with that draconian government to have the Iran nuclear deal because politically it looks good. And the fact that they have done, Iran has literally put troops into Russia, into the Ukraine, on the behalf of Russia. They have supplied and they are building factories to have drones to be used against the Ukraine and the Ukrainian people to support Russia because they fear no repercussion from the Biden-Harris administration, from America, because there is no leadership. And because of this lack of leadership, because of this lack of fear of consequence, we're seeing that Russia is being emboldened. We're seeing a combination of Russia, China, and Iran working together against the United States. That's not just me saying this. This isn't just an idea. This is coming from the BBC. Again, U.S. News doesn't want to talk about these things. The United States government doesn't want to talk about this. And this came out on December 30th, that Ukraine hit by a wave of Iranian drones. Because if they talk about this, then you would say, as a regular citizen of the world, why would we support Iran and give them hundreds of millions of dollars that they have used in the past, according to John Kerry, the former Secretary of State? They used hundreds of millions of dollars from the Iran nuclear deal to increase global terror. Why do we want to do that again as Iran is helping Russia kill Ukrainian people? Why do we want to work a deal with them and give them more money to allow them to make more rockets to give to Russia, to make more drones to give to Russia, to increase global terror? Somehow the Biden-Harris administration thinks this is a perfect idea. And it doesn't matter how many women, how many athletes Iran puts in prison or kills. It doesn't matter because politically they want this red meat, the Iran nuclear deal, to protect Obama's legacy and to make a legacy for the Biden administration. This is terrifying, folks. This is terrible. And this is the news that's out there. Jan says, we already know there's no plan. Republicans will do their investigations and Biden will sign his executive orders. Here's the thing. We know that in 2023, there is a locked government. We have no expectation of absolutely anything happening. Republicans control the House. Democrats have the Senate and the White House. Nothing's getting through. Republicans can't do anything. Democrats can't do anything because they're not compromising and they're not looking to do anything for the public. What is going to happen in 2023? We're going to have a bunch of investigations. We're going to have an investigation into Hunter Biden and the laptop. We're going to have investigations into the misuse of funds by the federal government. Okay, but what does that mean? Does that stop the people at our southern border? Does that close our southern border? No. Does it stop Iran from working with Russia against the United States? No. Does it stop North Korea from firing missiles and raising tensions to the level of the 1953 ceasefire of the Korean War? Does that stop anything? No. Because that's not a resolution to do anything. That's a reaction. The investigation of Hunter Biden and the crimes that may have been committed there, as alleged by the FBI agents that have done the investigations already, that's not going to move us forward. In fact, the competing issues about January 6th aren't going to move us forward. We know that a lot of people, hundreds, have been held in jail for well over a year now. And the worst thing that they've done is trespassing. And they have been held in jail, and the media just ignores it. Oh, they're just evil people. Why? See, we need a resolution to do the right thing, to do something effective, not just simply do something. Because we have been seeing for the last 2 years that Democrats and the Biden-Harris administration, they're just doing things. They keep telling us, we're doing something. Yeah, but it's not effective. They didn't solve the food crisis. They didn't even tell you about the food crisis. They want to ignore the fact that there's 30% less food in the world. They told you that inflation was temporary. They told you inflation isn't a problem. You go to the store, you're paying 25, 35, maybe 45% more on the things that you need, your food, basic items in your life. You're paying astronomically more under the Biden-Harris administration, as they tell you, no, that's a figment of your imagination. Things are great. They're telling you everything's fine, just like they told South Korea, oh, those missiles that were shot at you 75 times, yeah, that's not a problem. It's not a big deal. That's not really important. Wait a minute, but I see a missile. Wait a minute, I went to the store and I tried to buy butter and it costs double. And there's a shortage on butter. I went to buy lettuce and there's a shortage of lettuce and it costs 5 times more. Yeah, but that's your imagination. I'm in the store and it's empty shelves. The items, the food isn't there. Oh, no, that's your problem. You just don't understand. This is what we're being told. You just don't get it because you don't agree with the message that tells you, oh, just ignore it. It's not important. This is when I say there's a lack of leadership, that's what I'm talking about. Because there are answers to these questions that we may not like, but they will resolve it. We can do better because we can do things that are effective. But they're playing popularity politics. They're not thinking about the consequences, and that's endangering the world, as we are seeing with Russia and Iran, as we are seeing with North Korea and China, that is threatening hundreds of millions of people around the world. Mike Bowie says, why are we still sending billions to the Ukraine with absolutely no oversight? That is a great question. It's because we don't have leadership. Because the news media told you it's not a problem. That you have to support the Ukraine unquestioningly. You have to accept that the Ukraine is an angel and everything they do is fine. Meanwhile, we know that money is being siphoned off by the Ukraine. We know that the Ukrainian government is a corrupt government, always has been, continues to be. Not saying that Russia is the good guy here. I'm saying we know Ukraine aren't good guys either. These are very gray people that they're bad news. They have a bad government that is a corrupt government. Money is disappearing and we are pouring billions in there. And ultimately, my question about Ukraine is very simple. Whether Ukraine wins or loses, what does America get out of this? We've spent $90 billion. We have another $45 billion that we are sending over right now. This is your money. This is money that could pay, that could feed poor people, that could go to feeding children. This is money that could go to the homeless and building facilities to take care of them, or mental health. This is money that we can use in the United States for our infrastructure that is falling apart. $45 billion. That is a ridiculously large amount of money. And that's just the recent amount. And what do we get for that? At the end of the day, whether the Ukraine wins or loses, what do we get? By the way, this is money that will never be repaid. Ukraine will never give us this money back. They're not going to give the money back to Europe or to the United Kingdom or to the United States. We're never getting this money back. This is money that is gone forever. And we have no idea where that money is going. Because the moment we sent it to them, it disappeared. And we have no way of accounting for it. And we just keep sending them more and more money. I've got to ask you, why? Why are we sending them more and more money? Well, because Iran is sending over drones to attack Ukrainians. Yeah, then why are we making a deal to give Iran hundreds of billions of dollars? If we want Iran to not give drones and rockets to Russia, if we want Iranians not to fight in the Ukraine, why are we giving them money? Why is the Biden administration hell bent on making this deal to empower and to fund the global terror? Does that make sense to anyone? And people say, well, Mike, that's, I know you've been talking about it all year, but it's not really a big deal. Yeah, it is. Because you can support the Ukraine in their battle against Russia. That doesn't mean we need to give them all this money. What happens when we stop? And again, what do we get out of this? Why are we doing this when we could be helping our people, which would allow us to help other countries even more? What do we get from this? It's a question no one wants to ask. And the major media does not want to ask this question, and they refuse to have an answer to it because the answer seems to be nothing. We get nothing from this. This is about an economic proxy war with Russia, and we are losing. We are losing this. Whether the Ukraine wins or not, we lose. It's time to be honest. If we enter 2023 with the same misconceptions and misunderstandings of 2021 and 2022, we will get results that are no better than what we've gotten in the past. No one will be helped. No one will be improved. The most important thing we could do right now is to have a strong leader with a focused plan that would put fear into Russia, Iran, China, and therefore North Korea, Venezuela, and Cuba, and the other nations, the other socialist nations of the world. That's what we need. We need to show strength so they will calm down. And if there's anyone who thinks I am wrong, I'm happy to hear your conversation. I'm happy to hear from anyone in the world that says, Mike, you're misunderstanding the situation. That we have a wonderful benefit coming to the United States, as well as Europe, as well as the United Kingdom, that we have a benefit for all this money we are spending, hundreds of billions of dollars. There is a tangible net gain to the world. And if you know what that is, please tell me. I'd be happy to hear it. And if you're right, then maybe I would support it. But I don't think that's real. Going back to some of the comments, Jan says, Zelensky came out and said he's in this war until the end because he knows America will continue to fund him, which is true. We know our weapons sent are showing up in Africa. No kidding. Our weapons are, this is the same thing that happened with Operation Fast and Furious. Remember that? Under Eric, what was his name? Under the Obama administration. They were sending out the United States was shipping weapons to gangs in Mexico, and we lost the weapons. And that wound up killing American citizens with those guns. And here we are shipping out weapons and money to the Ukraine. The money's disappearing, the weapons are disappearing, and then we find out that they're being used in Africa, a continent that is, and by large, controlled by China, because America forgot about Africa, didn't pay attention to Africa. Communists did. They went in there with gangbusters because they understood if we're going to green energy, Africa has all the resources everyone needs, and they control the African governments. Therefore, they control those resources. So you may believe in green energy, but you're not going to get it without having to deal with China. And that means China's in control. So we have no leadership. And this is a problem because look at these layers, they're all connected. International politics isn't something isolated. And this all adds up to less security for you. You are less safe the longer that we have no plan and we have no focus in our nation. And we have no focus. In 2023, this is January 1st. This is the time that we can create that focus. This is the time that we can make that resolution, that we can put that leadership in place and improve the world. And the world is looking to America to do exactly that. Let's take that opportunity. Going back to the comments, Jan says that we don't get anything, but Biden is getting serious kickbacks. Mike Bowie mentions the 10% for the big guy. This is a big deal. Larry, I'm going to get to you in 1 second. And we know this is part of the investigations from the Hunter Biden laptop that we have been told wasn't real. We were told that we were conspiracy theorists, that we were demonized for this, that we were told that there was a problem with us in believing the investigation and the fact that there is documentation on a laptop from Hunter Biden that is confirmed as real that says there is a problem with the Biden administration and Joe Biden in particular. Remember, this is something we need to change because we were told for years, you're a bad guy because you don't believe Biden. You are just some kind of crazy racist nationalist because you won't obey. You're asking questions that you shouldn't ask because they said it's not important. And here we are finding out it's very important. All right. Larry, hello, Larry. Thank you for being part of the program. Thank you for your comment. You say, Larry says, am I aware of pump storage? China has 1 billion more people. It's been too late. The petro yuan here will come. I'm not familiar with the term pump storage. I don't understand the context of what you're saying there, Larry. So I'm not sure how to respond to that because I think I know what you mean, but I'm not sure. So I'd be happy to hear you clarify that. You can call in to 607-242-9247 and clarify that term for me because I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. In terms of, yes, China has more people, but that's not the important thing. It's the Chinese government, the CCP, the Communist government of China. They have been leveraging their influence and their ability. They're the manufacturing center of the world, essentially. They are where most of the items for America are being created because America, under the Obama administration, stopped being a manufacturing nation. And it has not improved. As much as Joe Biden wants to tell you, it's all great. No, we're not. It's not better today than it was in 2000. It's not. We're short 5 million manufacturing jobs. Industries shipped out of China. And that means they have control there. The petro yuan, the Chinese ability to affect international energy prices is critical, but the United States could maintain contain that. It's real simple. If America is energy independent, we're not giving all the money to OPEC. We're able to help our allies, like in Germany, to give them natural gas because we have a surplus of that. And when we were energy independent, we were sending over natural gas to Europe and in particular to Germany to help them out. When we stopped being energy independent on January 21st of 2021 because of the pen stroke of Joe Biden in shutting down the pipeline and cutting off the leases for oil and gas, making America energy dependent again, we stopped being able to help our allies and we became a problem for them because now we're competing with all of Europe for the same natural gas and energy that they need. And in fact, we're now going so far as to still not Joe Biden saying he needs to fix the energy problem in America. So rather than become energy independent, that we know we can be, and we were, he's going to go to Venezuela, a country that is killing its own people, a country that is starving its own people. They eat out of garbage cans, they eat their zoo animals. He's giving them, Venezuela, more money, $50 million more, for that corrupt, bankrupt country rather than being energy independent, which is causing more inflation in the United States. It's harming you and your family, and it's creating more of a problem. We could stop China in a heartbeat. We just need to be energy independent, and we can be because we were just 2 years ago. But let me go forward. Larry says, if you aren't aware of pump storage, you can't speak on green energy, period. The industrial age is over. Larry, I disagree with you. First of all, I do know a lot about green energy. I've been researching green energy, starting from ethanol, going back as far as 2006. And I've done the work, so has Planet of the Humans, the documentary that came out with Michael Moore's help, talking about the green energy movement. I've listened to the analysts from the Obama administration who prefer nuclear energy. To say that someone can't speak about something just because they don't know a term that you use vaguely doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about. I just don't know what you're speaking about. I may know it by a different term. And to say that what I'm talking about doesn't make sense, we're not out of the industrial age. We still manufacture things. We still ask India. They're still in the industrial age. China's certainly in the industrial age. Energy is a result of the industrial age. So no, we're not out of it. Let me go on. The term fossil fuel is made up, Jan says the term fossil fuel is just a made up term like assault weapons. Well, all fuel is fossil fuels, true. Larry says fracking is extremely finite. All energy based on carbon-based energy, whether it's oil or gas, yeah, of course it's finite. Larry goes on to say, are you aware that fracking is literally uncapping previously capped wells and squeezing out the last bit? That's actually not correct, Larry. Larry, let's be very clear. There's over 130 years of natural gas available just in the northeastern shale region for natural gas. The United States leads the world in natural gas capabilities. And so, yeah, it's finite, absolutely, but we're nowhere near the end of our access to that, as well as the oil reserves that we have around the country, especially in Alaska, but around the rest of the nation. We're nowhere near the end of our ability to get these things. So, yeah, it's finite, but finite doesn't mean it's ending tomorrow. And doesn't mean that we can't have solar energy or wind or some other form of energy, but we've been working on solar energy for over 70 years and we still can't make it effective. and it still requires resources from Africa that is controlled by China. So there's a problem there. If we really wanted to solve this, we'd go nuclear. That's the most efficient, most clean, most reliable source of energy, and yet the left doesn't like that, so we can't do that. Larry goes on to say the Keystone XL pipeline would make oil more expensive. No, I don't believe it's true. And Canada certainly didn't think that was true. He goes on to say, you sound like a Cambridge Analytica victim. Really? Okay. It's the internet age. The internet isn't an age. There is nothing is produced by the internet. Information is exchanged, and that's a good thing. But to say that you can have the internet all day long and that won't build a single car. You could have the internet all day long and that won't grow food. The internet age means nothing. It's information. But information by itself without action on that information is useless. That's what I believe, Larry. You can disagree with me, but I can tell you, just because there's an internet means nothing. Action because of the information that is conveyed across that internet, that's it. That's important. The internet is no more than a faster version of a newspaper. It's a faster radio signal. We've already had information exchange. It's just faster now. Fantastic. But that's not an age of its own, because just the same as newspapers weren't an age all by their own. Radio isn't an age by itself. So I disagree. But I do enjoy that you're having this conversation, Larry. I understand that you think this is very important. But let me be very clear. There is no green energy idea that is effective anywhere in the world. It is not at this moment. In the future, maybe. Today, there is no energy alternative to carbon-based energy that is effective. That's a fact. If there was, we wouldn't be using carbon-based energy. The only thing that's the most effective thing that is an alternative is nuclear energy, which progressives do not want to have. I don't know why. So, Larry, I understand what you're saying. You want to see a different alternative, but that doesn't exist. We have been but Larry, you're wrong in saying that we can't be cost effective with fossil fuels. We have been, and we will continue to be. But the problem here is because we are not energy independent, and we're not seeking to be energy independent, we're helping Venezuela, which is the original point. Because we're helping Venezuela in being able to be a dictatorship against its people, we're hurting our allies in Germany, which is making them susceptible to the actions of Russia, which is why we're in the Ukraine, or rather why the Ukraine is in the situation it's in right now, and it's why Iran is helping them. This is a problem. There's a bigger issue here. And when I say this, I want you to see, this is from the Gatestone Institute of International Policy. The Iran nuclear deal is not dead. And Russia is helping Iran to improve its nuclear capabilities. This came out December 31st. The problem is that we know this is a problem. In fact, this is from President Zelensky, as quoted by the Jerusalem Post, November 4th of 2022. How does Russia pay Iran for all this help? And this is asking Zelensky for his opinion. Is Iran just interested in money? Probably not money at all, but Russian assistance to the Iranian nuclear program. Probably this is the exact meaning of their alliance. And as we know today, Russia is in favor of the Iran nuclear deal. In fact, Russia is promoting the Iran nuclear deal that Joe Biden wants to do and has been trying to put forward, which should tell you that it's not a good thing to do. And this is on the table for 2023. They have been pushing to get this done as much as possible because this is a selling point for the 2024 presidential election. So this is a problem. And one of the answers to this problem is to be energy independent. But it's also to recognize how we are failing to have leadership. This is from The Guardian. The Ukraine is in the headlines now, but a whole new world conflict is about to erupt. Taiwan, North Korea, Iran, and Palestine. Gee, 1, 2, 3, the top 3 issues that we've been talking about for years now, or for the last 2 years now. We have been talking about Taiwan, North Korea, Iran, and the conflicts that we are seeing there, which are going to bring us to 3 regional wars. And they see this. This is the problem. We're so busy with Ukraine that we aren't noticing the problems around the rest of the world because we are not taking care of this. So, hang on, I want to catch up to some of the comments here. Larry is promoting, so Larry is very focused on energy, the ability to have energy. And he's claiming that there's only 46 years of known reserves available. And Larry, I've been hearing that there's only 50 years of oil left in the world for most of the 55 years I've been alive. I can remember in the 1980s, back when I was in my, I was in late 80s, I was still a teenager, and they were telling us there was only 50 years of oil left in the world. Today, they tell us there's only 50 years of oil left in the world. They keep saying that. Just because they keep saying it doesn't mean it's true. And there is no other alternative. But let me go on. So he's talking about hydroelectricity. We've been doing that for a long time. Whether it's beating dams or whether it's underwater currents spinning the wheels, it's not effective. Larry is saying that, and Larry is now saying that, well, we can tell what an exoplanet is made of. They know how much oil there is. Larry, let me be very clear here. We don't know what exoplanets are made of. We think we do, and the technology keeps changing, so we keep changing what we see there. In fact, most of these planets we never saw before. We've only seen them recently. So you're making a claim that science has figured it all out, except science doesn't have the final answers. They're still asking questions. They don't even know what Pluto is. To give you a more better understanding about what the reality here is, we don't know what's on the ocean floor, whether in the Atlantic or the Pacific, especially the Pacific, which is even deeper. We don't know what's on the floor of the ocean, and you're telling me they understand what's underneath the floor of the ocean? I mean, just to put it in context for you, Larry, we don't know what's happening on our ocean in our oceans, especially on the ocean floor, but we understand what's happening underneath the ocean floors in our Earth's crust? I don't think so. So, I'm not straw manning, I'm giving you examples. I'm trying to make sure it's clear. Because what you're doing is saying, well, this is the only answer, don't hear anything else, don't question it. I'm sorry, Larry, I question things. And I understand that our knowledge is limited. And because I understand we have limited knowledge and we're making conclusions based on incomplete data, that we're making mistakes. So rather than make those mistakes over and over again, rather than telling us the same things that were not true in the past, and we're saying it again, we've been told that climate change was going to cause a global famine in the 1950s. We were told that it was going to cause a global winter. Then it was a global heat wave. Now it's climate change. We keep changing the circumstance. The same science is producing all these different variant answers. None of it has been accurate. We don't have the answers science isn't absolute. Rather than trying to pick some story that we want to push out there, how about we make an effective answer? The effective answer today is either nuclear power or energy independence through oil and gas. That's the reality. And if we don't do those things, we're only making things worse because the global instability will increase. That's just the fact of it all. That's the reality. And I'm not picking on you, Larry, but I'm trying to make sure we understand. Larry says that we don't know about the ocean because it's a giant military submarine playground. Seriously? Seriously. You think that we don't know what's happening in the oceans because of the military? Like every military in the world? Japan's military, Russia's military, the United Kingdom's military, France, Portugal, Spain, Africa, 15 different countries in Africa. Are you serious? Australia? No, I don't believe that. Larry, I'm a Republican conservative, and I don't know a lot of things. I don't claim to know everything about everything. I don't. But I do know the things that I pay attention to. I do know the things that I research. I do know the things that I present to people. There's nothing wrong with that. I pay attention to certain issues. I don't pay attention to every whimsy that's out there. Not every issue is equal. Not in not in my mind. I'm concerned about what's happening with North Korea. I'm concerned about what's happening with Iran. I'm concerned about what's happening with the world powers as they are converging against the United States, against Western philosophy. There's my concern. And that's something that is absolutely, now that's something that's an absolute factor. And no, the algorithms don't bring me information. My research brings me information. I spend hours a day. I spend somewhere around 6 to 12 hours a day researching information, looking at the actual articles, looking at sources from around the world. That's how I get my information. I don't watch TV. So you're trying to make it sound like, oh, well, you just saw that on Fox News. You just went to go. No, there's a lot more involved, which is why I'm having the conversation I'm having, Larry. And that's why I present some of the information for people to start their conversations with. Not because I'm perfect, not because I have the final answer. And that's why I say people can call in 607-242-9247. If you think I don't have a source, if you think I've come to the wrong conclusion, I'm open to hear the difference. But to tell me you just don't understand, that's fail. That's just not realistic. That's not helping anyone. Larry wants to know, what are one of the sources I use? The BBC, The Guardian, the Jerusalem Times, the Hindustan Times. I go to NASA, CDC, New York State, California, the state governments of California, the United States government. Those are some of the sources that I use. How's that? And that's just a quick list of things right off the top of my head. Notice I didn't say NBC, CBS. They're not my sources. So, I don't know what you're thinking of, Larry. I can't help you. But I can tell you the questions that I have, and I can tell you the issues that I see, and I can tell you that the research you're putting out there, it sounds like you've made the conclusion and now you're looking for the sources to back it up. Instead, I'm looking at it a different way. My body language? I don't even know what the hell that's supposed to mean. Okay. Are you talking about the fact that I'm looking at what you're writing, which is on one screen, and my camera's on another one? Is that what you're talking about? I don't know what you mean by that. But moving forward, because there's a lot of things I wanted to speak about today. I'm talking about international safety. I'm talking about the global stability. But there's also the national stability that's also important. And I think we should talk a little bit about that as well. Like talking about, wait a minute, Larry says, you don't know the difference between your personal beliefs and political platforms. How would you know what I know? Larry, how do you know what my personal beliefs are? Do you know? How do you know? Do you know what my political platforms are? Do you know what they are, Larry? See, now we're on the edge of becoming personal. It's perfectly fine to attack whether you think this is an important issue or that's an important issue. But Larry, now you're trying to almost get personal, and you don't know me. And you don't know any of my issues. You don't know what my personal beliefs are or what my political platforms are. You can tell what my political commentary is about, but to even understand that, you'd have to look at over 17 years of political commentary that I have put out on multiple formats. I have over 1,500 videos on YouTube alone, which is over 1,000 hours of content on YouTube alone, not including the elections that I've run for, the interviews I've done with the major news media. But to say, you're a conservative Republican, so that answers everything, that's ridiculous. You can't label, please, don't try and label me. Don't put me in a checkbox. Larry, that's the worst thing. And I hate this when progressives, and when we see this from progressives and Democrats currently, and they love to say, well, everyone fits into a checkbox, and your checkbox is conservative Republican. That means nothing. I'm a human being. I'm not a checkbox. I'm not black. I'm not Hispanic, in particular Puerto Rican. I'm not gay, straight male. I'm not, what are the checkboxes they have out there? I don't fit into that because that's not me as a human being. I have issues that I'm concerned about. And this is true about everyone in America. We cannot put people into checkboxes and assume, well, here's your checkbox that answers everything about you. And there's nothing else independently different about you and what you believe in. I'm very happy, Larry, that you're putting this up, that you're putting that out there as a question, because this is a really important thing in 2023, because we're seeing such a movement towards wokeism in every aspect of our lives. And they're telling us, well, you are this, so you must be that. What did Biden say in his Reichstag speech in Philadelphia? That if you didn't agree with him, that you are the problem, that you're a domestic terrorist. That's what he said in Philadelphia. Because he put people into a category that if you are a Republican, if you believe in America, if you're a nationalist, if you're patriotic, then you must be evil. There must be something wrong with you. See, that's the problem with checkbox politics, because it doesn't look at people as human beings and individuals, that someone might believe in America, in the Constitution, and they can be a Democrat. You can believe in the Second Amendment and be a Democrat or a progressive. You can be a woman and not believe in abortion. You can be a black male and not believe in BLM. And in terms of not Black Lives Matter, the statement, but the political movement. So, you know, you're trying to somehow, Larry, it sounds like you're trying to attack me, but you don't know where to attack. You're trying to box me into something, except I don't fit in those boxes. You're trying to pigeonhole me so you can say, I don't have to pay attention because you fit this box. This is the same thing that people tell me, oh, well, you're just a racist. Really? Prove it. I've got over, like I said, over 1,500 videos I've done, over 1,000 hours. I've been reviewed by the NSA, many Democratic candidates, the DNC. They've looked through all of it because they don't like when I attack their issues. They don't like when I bring questions to some of the things they say. No one's ever found any evidence of me being a racist or a sexist. Doesn't exist. But that's the terms they want to use. That's the things they like to say because they want to put me in a box so they can discount it. Sorry, it doesn't work. So I'm just going to keep going. Where's your? Please start putting up some sources for some of the claims that you're making here. You're making a lot of claims, Larry, and I don't see any evidence. I don't see any sources. I don't see anything that's verifiable. You're just saying stuff. I'm giving you sources. As an example, I'm concerned about domestic safety as well, not just international safety and the consequences of a lack of leadership in America around the rest of the world. I'm also concerned about what's happening here in the United States. As an example, talking about New Year's Eve, the shootings, which you can go to Google. Matter of fact, I will refresh it right now, live here. New Year's Eve shootings, Chicago, 2 dead, 10 wounded. You know what's the good thing? That's the good news, because that's actually a reduction from what we saw in 2022. But remember, Chicago has every single piece of gun control we've ever heard of and didn't stop anything. So this is something that I think is important for us to understand. That we're being told, if you just obey, whether it's obey the federal government on international issues or whether it's on domestic issues, you're going to be okay. Just obey. We're going to pass another law and everything will be okay. And it's never true. I know, but a lot of people want to focus on something like George Santos. And that's the latest thing. Is everyone's pissed about George Santos. George Santos has campaign finances. He's a liar. He lied about his background. He's got 37 pending charges because of campaign finance. Let's remember, campaign finance. Do you remember that there was Edwards? John Edwards was getting haircuts for $1,250 paid by his campaign. On average, the haircuts were about $400, but he's paid as much as $1,250. That was the campaign expense. But you're saying, oh, but George Santos, he has a bunch of bills and they're questionable. So it was a $1,200 haircut, but no one cared. And that wasn't the thing that ended his campaign. Do I think there's an issue with George Santos? Absolutely. Is it as important as some of the other issues out there? Well, what about Charles Rangel? He forgot that he had $1.3 million of income, including his home in Harlem, and he just forgot about that. That's something that I think is more important. That corruption is a bigger issue. And we remember that Joe Biden, he has been raised by everyone in the universe. Now he's a Puerto Rican. Joe Biden is now a Puerto Rican because there was literally, what was this? I want to get it, here it is. 0.39% of Delaware's population in the 1970s were Puerto Rican. 0.39%. There were 2,000 Puerto Ricans in all of Delaware, of 550,000 people. Joe Biden wasn't raised by them. He's made these lies before. We've heard that many, many times. He's claimed to everything under. He said that he has gone to Jewish synagogues, never actually showed up. He said he went to the border, never been there. He has made up a lot of things. So when I see that they are attacking George Santos right now for campaign finance, that we have seen elected officials and candidates that they've all had worse problems than what he's had, I'm wondering, why are they picking on him right now? Because these numbers aren't new. It's not like he didn't have to file his campaign finances throughout the entire year, and this has been information everyone has been aware of throughout 2022. If his finances were the problem, we'd have already seen this. This would have already been an issue. It wasn't. So why are they talking about it now? Because they're trying to build up a way to silence him, to distract from the other issues, to try and hurt Republicans. because that's what they're really focused on. And they're saying, well, he's a liar. He lied about his background. Now, I have no problem that if people want to say that George Santos, he's a liar because he lied about where he worked, he lied about his lifestyle, I have no problem with that. Be very upset about that with George Santos. Because I think the same way that when I hear Joe Biden say, well, I'm Puerto Rican too, because, Puerto Ricans basically raised me, even though there were virtually no Puerto Ricans in Delaware in the 1970s, you're a liar. And you have no credibility. And I can respect someone saying, well, George Santos has no credibility either. I respect that. But guess what? Joe Biden no one has suggested that he should be removed from office, even though we know that he's been a plagiarizer, that he has lied consistently over 50 years about every aspect of his life and all of his interactions, his personal interactions. He's never been removed from office. So why are we looking to do that to George Santos? There's something else going on here. That's my big point. It's not that you should trust George Santos or that Republicans are different than Democrats in the fact that they both lie. They're the same. We can pull out, and I've just shown you John Edwards, Charles Rangel, and Joe Biden, and examples of how they have lied and they have had accounting irregularities. This is common because there's a lot of corruption in our government. But we're focused on this so that we don't talk about, well, there's been shootings in America and the red flag laws don't work. Gun control laws don't work. We're spending too much money in places like Pakistan, like in Ukraine. We're spending money wastefully, and we have laws that are ineffective, and we have no focus in our nation. And we're being distracted by stories like George Santos when there are far more important things to be focused on. Let me go back to some of the comments here, because I know there's some other comments besides from Larry, who doesn't agree with me because he just doesn't like what I have to say. Okay, I can live with that. Hang on, I'm just trying to catch up here. Jan mentions that 77 Congress people caught with insider trading. That is another story that doesn't go anywhere. Because the problem is they don't care about that. The news media doesn't care about that unless it serves a bigger political agenda, because the corruption is allowed to exist. Jeremy's with us. Hey, Jeremy, always love to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Dow mentions that labels by their use are abbreviated forms of shortcuts for humans in order to react to information. Labels are the equivalent of sound bites when used in context of identity politics. And George Santos, Dow goes on to say, George Santos lied about his background. Okay, and Warren, there's another example. Yeah, Elizabeth Warren. How many decades did she run around saying that she was an American Indian? And it's not true. It's never been true. How much money did she make by lying about her heritage? How many political and business advantages did she have in her life taken away from other people who were deserving because Elizabeth Warren said she was an American Indian? So this is the important thing to keep here. The fact is, we should be asking an entirely different question. Yes, every single one of those issues should have been brought up, and they should be penalties for these individuals, except we have different standards here. Elizabeth Warren lied for decades, never once affected her elected office. We have seen the decades of financial irregularities that I can point to with John Kerry, with John Edwards, with Charles Rangel, with Joe Biden. Does not affect them being in elected office. George Santos has the same problem, and now he's an issue. By the way, don't think about whatever else is happening in our government. Don't think of what's happening with the danger to the public, whether it's from illegal immigration or whether it's from gun control. Don't focus on that. This guy is the problem, and we need to talk about him. Why? give you another example of what I'm talking about here. What about the news that's coming out about Butterfield? This is the corruption we're talking about. This is G.K. Butterfield, who is a Democrat out of North Carolina. He resigned on Friday so that he could start his job today. He was going to lose his, he's no longer a member of Congress. He didn't run for re-election. He's out. So another Democrat took his place. But he decided to resign early so that he could start his job as a lobbyist a day earlier, January 1st. And why did this all happen? Because the real story here is they did, the congressional lines were being redrawn in North Carolina because of the census. And because of the change in the population and the way they drew the lines in the census, he didn't like it because he had to compete. His congressional district became competitive, and because it was competitive, he failed. He said, I'm not even going to run. And he gave up the job because he didn't want to compete to have the job. He didn't want to prove to his constituents that he was justified in holding the position. And instead, he decided to become a lobbyist. And there's the bigger issue. They're talking about, well, he resigned and he's going to be a lobbyist. The cause of this wasn't, and I think that's the important thing, is it's because he didn't want to compete. He didn't want a fair option. He wanted an imbalance and a control. And when he lost that control, when he didn't have that imbalance, then we saw what happened as a result. He went and became a lobbyist. It's the same thing that we're seeing here with George Santos, which we have seen with Charlie Rangel, which is what we have seen with John Edwards, which we have seen with Joe Biden. It doesn't help us. Hello, hot chicks. Happy New Year to everyone, by the way. To Dow, to Jeremy, to Mike Bowie, to Jan Rains. I'm sorry, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. Happy New Year. I want to wish you all a very happy New Year. But again, we're going through all these different examples that we can point to. Just like there's people on the right, there's people on the left. The bigger issue is the corruption and the fact that we only look at the corruption when there is a political benefit to it, and we should point out what is that political benefit that is going on. The political benefit is about control, and the moment that any of these individuals are faced with the fact that they will lose control, that's when we see that they take action. And that's when it becomes a national story, and when everyone has to talk about this. George Santos is as corrupt as every single other New York State member of Congress. To some degree, I think they're all somewhat corrupt. Yeah, we can point to almost every single one of them and say there's some corruption. You can look at every one of their SEC filings, their campaign filings, and you will find election irregularities. You will find accounting irregularities in every single one of their campaigns. You will find that these people are, almost all of them, are corrupt to some degree or another. That's New York State. That's been very consistent. Why are we pissed now? Why is it an issue now? Because in 2023, Republicans have control of the House, Democrats can have control of the Senate, and that's not good for 2024. And I think that's the thing that we have to look at. So, I see Tina is with us. Hello, Tina. Happy New Year to you. Larry's trying, again, Larry, I don't know where Larry's coming up with these comments. He's just throwing out these lines like corruption is the voters. The corruption in American government is voters. That doesn't make any sense. Larry, literally. And I think this is important. I'm glad that he's making these comments here so people can reflect on this. The corruption is the voters. There are people in America that believe that voters are corrupt. That doesn't make any sense. The American people aren't corrupt. Our leader, the elected officials, very often can be, but I don't see American people are corrupt. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Unless you think America's an evil country and Americans are evil people, that's the only way you can make that statement. It doesn't make sense. I think politicians, yes, we need more effective, efficient politicians. I have said that forever. I've said that about Democrats and Republicans equally. I am not standing behind George Santos and saying, well, he's a good guy, so we got to keep him in. I'm not saying that at all, but I am saying, why is this happening now? Because it's not about his election accounting, his accounting of his election. We already had access to it. It wasn't a problem. And everyone else has had far greater issues that did not affect them being able to be elected. So that's not the problem. And when they talk to you about George Santos and say he's a liar, well, we've got examples of people in elected office, multiples of them, that are in elected office, and they're liars too. Where is our consistent line here? Where is the standard we are holding? The corruption is, I'm sure, yes, that means there's corrupt individuals that are elected that have election inadequacies, that they have accounting issues, and that they are liars that are in elected office right now. Yes, that exists, and that is a problem, and that is corruption, and we need to get better people in office. But why are we focused on George Santos right now when this honestly isn't an issue? They're making it out to be an issue. It's not. There's a bigger issue and a much more important issue, and we're not talking about that. I think this is important for 2023. We need to hold these politicians accountable to these issues, and we have to look through the news media and go, but where is the source? Like in the example with Butterfield that I'm showing you, and this is coming from Yahoo News, this is coming from the major news media on Friday. The point isn't that he's become a lobbyist, which is corrupt, because he just literally, Friday he was a member of Congress, Monday he's now a lobbyist. That's a problem. But the bigger problem is it's because of control. It's because of power. It's because he didn't want a fair election. He wanted power. That's the issue. And I'll quote again, when he announced his decision not to seek election in 2021, Butterfield criticized, his decision was made in 2021, not in 2022. He criticized North Carolina's congressional maps that made his Democrat-leaning district more competitive. There's the problem. That was the issue. That's the problem. That having competition, having to earn a position to not be taken as a given, that's the problem. And that kind of mentality, that kind of politics leads to open borders. It leads to a lack of leadership because these people feel like they are entitled to their positions, that they are neo-nobles, that they are not accountable to the American people, and that they live on a different standard than everyone else, which then lets us have no focus and allows for the corruption and the problems around the rest of the world. Now, if anyone disagrees with me on that, I'm perfectly happy to hear you make your comment. Call into 607-242-9247. The phone line is on. The phone is on. I'll be happy to hear you and tell me, Mike, but you just don't understand. That's what I'm looking for. And it's not about check boxes. This isn't about checkbox politics. This is about you as human beings and as American citizens understanding that there are underlying issues that we need to address. And those issues only get addressed when we get involved and we ask questions and we ask for answers and we evaluate these politicians on who is effective and who is efficient and who is honest. And we need to vote them out of office, Republican or Democrat, based on those criteria. And we're not doing it. And, just saying that well, Mike, I don't like what you're saying, like Larry is mentioning, that he just doesn't like this. He doesn't like my answer. He doesn't like the way I'm saying these things. I don't care. This isn't about whether you like it or not. This is about what's happening around us. This is about what's affecting our lives. I'll give you a different way of looking at it. Here's the title. I want you to see the titles. Now, what happened is, last night, around New York City, we know for a fact that police were attacked by a crazed individual who had a machete, and he attacked 3 different police officers. That is the facts. We know those facts exist, and they didn't change. Okay? We see the title here is Rookie Cop Attacked by Alleged Islamic Extremist with a Machete Near Times Square. Okay, looking at ABC News, 3 police officers near Times Square injured in a machete attack on New Year's Eve. Notice what they left out of that? The alleged Islamic extremist. Isn't that an important issue going on? When we see this coming from NBC News, terror investigation underway after New Year's Eve machete attack in New York City. They made it even less focused. They made this even more distracting for you. Okay, there's a terror investigation. Why is there a terror investigation? There was an attack with a machete. Okay, who was attacked? American citizens? Police officers? What's the context? Where were they at? It was in New York City. Yeah, where? Manhattan? Bronx? Queens? Brooklyn? Staten Island? And so what we're seeing here is that this is systematically, they're trying to take away your ability to ask questions. Because if you know that this is an alleged Islamic extremist, well, that would explain why it's a terror investigation. And that would make you say, well, where did this guy come from? Why was he in the United States? Is he legally in America? And this is what I think, if it turns out that this individual is not an American citizen, that this person came to America from another country, very likely an illegal alien, well, that brings us back to our open borders. This is why they don't want to have the conversation. Because they don't want to go back and say, oh, well, this is a result of illegal immigration. That if we actually had closed borders and not open doors, this guy would never have gotten into America to attack police officers. Now, I could be wrong on that. I could be wrong. I haven't researched everything in that story, but I think it's important to understand why are they trying to change the story so that you don't ask questions about the story. It's kind of like why we see that there's the bail reform. The Hollywood elites, Danny Glover, Richard Branson, they go out there and they're like, oh, bail reform is bad. Having a bail is bad. And we're going to just bail people out. Remember, that's what Kamala Harris did with BLM. They just bailed people out because they're black. And so therefore, we're going to get them out on bail. And when they did that, they didn't pay attention to who they were bailing out. They just, black man got arrested, bail him out. Black man got arrested. Police are evil, bail him out. And what happened? The man turned around and he tried to kill another man. Turned around and was shooting people. And they got embarrassed. And here's the thing, this didn't get down until next year. So, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at some of the comments. And again, Larry's just upset about things because he just doesn't like the topics. I'm sorry, Larry, I don't care. But I think this is important to talk about. Again, these are examples of what we are seeing across our nation, that we are being distracted from this. People are talking about George Santos. They're not talking about the fact that Hollywood has been funding the bail of criminals, violent criminals, who have then turned around and attacked and harmed the public. They don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about George Santos because he's a Republican and therefore he's evil, But they don't want to talk about the Democrats that we historically have seen have done exactly the same things and never once been called. They've never been punished for doing the same thing that George Santos is doing, which I disagree with. But look at the other examples. How can I be upset about George Santos when we've got Joe Biden and we've had John Edwards and John Kerry and the list goes on, Charles Rangel, for decades? How can I be that upset about George Santos? What's the level here? Why are we being distracted with these stories? Because they don't want to talk about what's happening in North Korea. They don't want to talk about the inflation. They don't want to talk about the food crisis. They don't want you to talk about safety. Red flag laws are going to protect you. Except they don't. Gun control is going to protect you. You're going to be safe. But you're not. Over and over again, we have the examples there. And we see that when they do these super progressive ideas and they put them into real life, when they run the experiment on our lives, it fails over and over again at the cost of human beings' lives and safety. No bail has not made people safer. In fact, it has caused more people to be victims, repeat victims of crimes. Over and over again, we've seen that. We've seen that in New York State. 14% of the people that have gotten out on no bail have gone out and committed even more crimes, many of them threatening the individuals who were witnesses to their first crime. This is a problem. And, even when we see people like in the comments, Larry, and I'm not upset that Larry is making his comments. I'm always happy to have comments, but he's actually making no substantive arguments. I don't like what you're saying. I don't like what you say means. Okay. But so what? I'm not here for your feelings. I don't care. I'm showing you the evidence of the failure of the politics and the policies and the way that we are being distracted from those failures. And in 2023, if we focus on the failure and fix it, every failure is an opportunity to achieve, to overcome, to surpass the limits that we have had in the past, rather than continuing to repeat and make those same mistakes again. They keep telling us bail reform is going to make social justice, it's going to make the justice system better, and it doesn't. It never has. There is no example of it being better anywhere in the nation that it's been done. We have lots of information from where it's been done, where things have gotten worse, that the problems are bigger. Why are we not trying to fix that rather than continue to run the experiment? Why is it we're not focused on legal immigration and closing our borders? Why are we not focused on that when we keep seeing that individuals who shouldn't be in our country are not only in our country, but they're causing harm to American citizens? The root problem there is the fact that we have an open border, not the violence that they did. Yes, that is a problem. The root cause is that they got into this country illegally because people are saying the door is open, walk on in. 5 billion times. But we're not supposed to focus on that. We're supposed to focus on something completely different and be completely distracted from the fact that this is not only about illegal immigration, but terrorism. We need to focus. We need to really pay attention and hold our elected officials accountable. We need to hold these Hollywood celebrities accountable for the crazy things that they are saying. And remind them that you don't get to just say something stupid just because. I'll give you a great example of that as well. The case for wearing masks forever. There are people who want you to wear a mask for the rest of your life. That every time you're out in public, you should be wearing a mask. This is reported by the New Yorker, December 28th, by Emma Green. And what do we see here? Emma Green went out because she thinks that you should always wear a mask because COVID is absolutely deadly. It's going to kill everyone in the world. Except there's more people today than before there was COVID. The world population is growing. And it's so deadly, so absolutely life-threatening that they decided that they're going to create their own version of the CDC. I'm not making this up. This is, and this is so stupid. So this is a doctor. What's her name here? I want to get it right. Mindy Thompson Fullilove, a professor of urban policy and health at the New School, decided that since she studies epidemics, and they have to mention, and by the way, she's black. I don't know why that's important. I don't know how that changes anything. The New Yorker felt it was absolutely essential that you understand that she's black, because they had a brand new sentence and they started off with Fullilove, who is black. So being black is important to understanding science somehow. I don't understand that. I don't know how someone's skin tone conveys knowledge to you or somehow changes the way that you understand knowledge. I don't get that. This is what's in our news. This is what is being promoted to you right now. It seems innocuous. It's not. The second paragraph, first sentence, Fullilove, who is black. How does that contribute to anything else that is about to follow? It doesn't. It's just meant to distract you and to stop you from critiquing her. Now you can't say something about Fullilove, Professor Fullilove, unless someone says, well, you're a racist because she's black. Well, I didn't talk about her being black. I'm talking about her as a professor. Oh, but she's black. So what? Anyway, moving forward. Fullilove, who's black, has spent her career studying epidemics, AIDS, crack, drug-resistant tuberculosis. She feels that the pandemic was absolutely deadly and dangerous, and that there should have been more restrictions on your life and your freedom from the government. And the CDC didn't follow the science. Remember, this is all we heard from the CDC, from Biden, from many politicians. Follow the science. The science says this. This is what we heard from Dr. Fauci, that he was the science and that you have to listen to him and follow the science. And Fullilove says we didn't follow the science. So her answer is she created, and she wants to create, her own CDC called the People's CDC, a coalition of academics and doctors and activists who believe that the government has left them behind because they won't do what they want. This scares me. Little Dipper, Happy New Year. Good to have you with us. Thank you very much for being involved. So this is a problem. Again, we're seeing, and I'm giving you various examples of ways that they're trying to distract us and tell us you have to obey, and how dare you complain, even as they do some of the most ridiculous things that are having negative consequences on people's lives. They want you to be terrified of the pandemic because you're all going to die, except guess what? The population is growing. People aren't dying en masse. It's not the Black Plague. It's not even close. And they want you to restrict your life because it's good for them, and it takes power away from you and gives it to the government to restrict your freedom in your life. So you have to do this. And if you question it, they are injecting the issue of race so that you can't question it. You can't say anything. Why? Because she's a woman and she's black. And if you could say something, well, then that makes you a sexist and a racist, which is not real. It's not true. And her idea of making an alternative a popularity contest CDC, that's just stupid. That doesn't help people. But it's the same idea of having a bunch of Hollywood stars that are just bailing at people out, and they're telling us that we need no bail across America because that's going to be a good thing, except it hasn't ever been good. But you can't question Danny Glover because he's a Hollywood star. He's black. You can't question Richard Branson because he's a billionaire, and he's the right kind of billionaire because he's progressive. You can't question John Legend because he's a black entertainer. This is stupid. This is crazy stuff. User has been banned. Fantastic. Good to see you here, man. Let me catch up on some of the comments here. I'm skipping past all the Larry stuff because it seems like he has nothing to say here. He's just saying, he just doesn't like anything I'm saying, which I don't care. But he's not actually giving any substance in his arguments. So I see Little Dipper has joined us for the new year. I'm happy to see you there. User has been banned, joined us. Hello. And says most fly, but yet millions are on foot. So the problems get worse. Dow says the lottery, so like jury duty. Randomized roster for every citizen at the age of the majority and term limits. I think you guys are having other conversations in the comments, but so we're trying to look at this from a different way. And to start the year of 2023, I'm trying to look at this from a different way. Let's look at the root problems. Let's understand the consequences of what we are doing. So that's why we started with an international. We've been going through. I don't care about the surface level picking on this person or that person or the way they're trying to distract us. Let's look at the substance of what we are seeing over and over again. In North Korea, in Ukraine, with Iran, what are we seeing? We are seeing a coalition of governments, rogue nations, nations that have a very bad intent by their own statements, like Iran, who says that they want to eliminate Israel. They want to eliminate America. They don't care whether you're a progressive or not, or whether you're a Democrat or not, or independent or not. They will kill everyone because you don't believe what they believe in Iran. And to prove that and to show you that they absolutely do not care what your political leanings are, they killed their own citizens because they could see the young girl's hair. They beat her to death because they could see her hair. They have been beating people near to death for actually complaining and protesting about beating a 22-year-old girl to death because they could see her hair. They're arresting their entertainers in Iran because they went to a party where men and women happen to be. And if you don't believe that that's the way it should be, that women shouldn't show their hair, that women shouldn't be at parties where men happen to be, if you don't believe that, the answer from Iran is then you have to die. It doesn't matter about your politics. And if you think that you're progressive and you know what, America's a bad guy in Iran, they're actually good guys. Remember, Iran's answer to people who are gay or trans is to throw them off of a building. These aren't good people. And yet we're trying to make deals with these people. Why are we not critiquing that in America? Why are we allowing the news media to ignore this, to minimize this? This is a big deal. These guys are trying to kill everyone else. They don't care, which is why they're giving rockets to Russia, why they're giving drones to Russia to kill Ukrainians. Why? Because there's Americans there. Because it makes America look bad and weakens Americans. There's a root problem here. And the problem isn't the fact that, that they're necessarily giving the rockets. It's because we have an American government that's bowing down and trying to enable this because of politics, because they want a couple of extra votes. There's your bigger problem. And I think that's a big deal. I think that's one of the biggest deals. And that's connected to what we're seeing with North Korea. North Korea is saying that, well, Iran, Joe Biden's bending over backwards trying to beg Iran to go forward with the Iran nuclear deal, even as Iran is enabling American citizens to be attacked and killed. Well, if they're getting that, North Korea is saying, well, why don't we fire off more missiles? Let's get money from America because we'll endanger their allies in South Korea, in Japan. Let's threaten the Americans who are in Taiwan or Japan or in South Korea. Let's threaten them all and see how much money America will give us. They asked China, is that okay? China said, well, that's going to make Joe Biden look bad. It's going to make America weak. Absolutely. Go for it. Here's the hypersonic missile technology so you can go and fire off these missiles left and right. The bigger issue isn't that they're firing the missiles, it's why are they firing the missiles? And why aren't we doing anything about them firing the missiles? Why is it I have to go overseas and look at the Hindustan Times, the Jerusalem Times? I have to go over to the BBC and the Guardian. I have to look at the Japan Times to find out about what's happening with North Korea, because in America, they don't want to talk about it. And they're perfectly happy to quote the White House saying, it's not a big deal. This isn't a problem. Crazy. This is the big issue. And we don't deal with these root problems. 2023 needs to be about the root problems, answering these issues at their core. Understanding that there is corruption that exists, it is a problem on both the right and the left, that there is no perfect party out there, and they're just as flawed. And in fact, right now, there is an emphasis on the left. They are getting promoted by special interest groups in Hollywood, glamorizing these problems, making them worse. We need to get to the root of these problems and to resolve it. I don't think I'm wrong about that. Oh, wait a minute. I just saw something. I just saw a comment from Larry, who's been very active in the comments, and I find that interesting. And Larry says, and I am quoting him here, quote, North Korea's leadership was because of U.S. intervention. Iran is the same. Oh my God, that is insane. Larry has suggested to our audience, international audience. So I would love to hear it from the people in North Korea, in Japan, in Taiwan. We have an audience across the world. I'd love to hear them speak up, or anyone from overseas. I wish Agent Black was here. That North Korea's leadership had nothing to do with the United States, and Iran's leadership has nothing to do with the United States. That is a very ignorant statement about world politics. Makes no sense whatsoever. Users Band says, yes, North Korea didn't take over all of Korea because the U.S. got involved, and had they used a bomb a few times, North Korea wouldn't exist today. And that's true, but it's a little extreme. Tina says that she thinks Larry is a bot screwing with the show. Well, yeah, he is. It's come to that. He's not, I don't think he's a bot. I think he's someone who has a very political agenda, and he was sent to try and disrupt this, to try and see if he would shake me up. It doesn't, because he doesn't have anything to say. I wish there was something of content. And Larry, if you thought you had something to say of real content, instead of just saying you don't agree with anything I have to say, or any of the sources that I have put on the screen, the links that I have in the description, if you have nothing of substance there, I don't know why, but you know, if you have something of substance, call in 607-242-9247. I'm open to hear a substantive conversation to tell me how I've misunderstood. Little Dipper says Japan is preparing for war, and you're right, Little Dipper, they are. There is. We're seeing this build up in Southeast Asia, and I think in the next 2 years, we're going to see this boil over. Whether it's because of Taiwan, or whether it's because of North Korea screwing up, and instead of just firing a missile at Japan or firing a missile at South Korea, they're actually going to hit somebody. And that's going to escalate instantly everything. And so that there's a serious danger there that eventually they keep firing off missiles like this, somebody's going to get hurt. It's going to happen. And we're going to be involved, either because of the treaty, the 1960s treaty with Japan, or with our agreements with South Korea. We're right in the middle of that, which means China then gets involved because they're the ones who control North Korea. So it's important for us to understand the context of what's happening and the content of what is happening. And American news media is ignoring this. They don't want you to talk about this at all. They really like to suppress this subject. And that's why they send off bots or individuals like Larry who are there to try and distract you and say, no, don't pay attention to what's going on. Don't listen. It's all wrong. Why? Because they don't like it. They don't want you to look at, what's with gun control. You've got to obey gun control. It's important. We need to take away your rights and your freedoms because of gun control. And then we see, what happens over New Year's Eve? Oh, no, there's shootings in everywhere where the gun control is. Gun control didn't stop anyone from committing crimes. That's not the solution. Well, but that's because the justice system isn't fair. So we need to bail out all those violent criminals. Well, we see as an example with Las Vegas, with Danny Glover. What's the answer? Oh, yeah, you bail out these violent criminals, and they go out and they commit even more violent acts. There's a problem. It's a serious problem. We need to get to the root of these problems. When we see that Butterfield, a former member of Congress, instantly becomes a lobbyist the day after resigning, and the reason why he decided to be a lobbyist is because he thought he wouldn't be able to maintain control because there wasn't enough gerrymandering in his state. That's a problem, not just for North Carolina, it's for the nation. Hang on a second. I'm a little tired because, New Year's Eve was a long night. It was a good night. I hope everyone had a good time with that. But I think these things are very important. And so we have to look at these things in the context. Is George Santos a problem? Absolutely. But he's not unique. This isn't a unique problem. There's a bigger issue. Because if we go through all of the elections, all the accounting of every election, every candidate, and look at what they've been doing, we will find the same irregularities. He's not unique. If we're talking about, he's a liar, as many people in the comments have said, we've seen that there are many liars in elected office right now. Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, Charles Rangel. We can go down a list. So we have to deal with these root problems. And in 2023, if we don't start dealing with these root problems, we are seeing that they are escalating and they are getting far less controllable and far worse for everyone. The less bail that we have, the more violent criminals we have on our streets committing more violent crimes. When we have no international policy, we see more nations acting more violently and more crazily, endangering more people's lives, bringing us closer to more regional wars. When we have no core consistency in terms of corruption in our government and trying to fight that, we get more people like a George Santos, like a Elizabeth Warren, like a Joe Biden, like a Charles Rangel. This is where the problems are. We have to deal with these root problems. Dow says the root problem is that the political service went from a civic duty to a salaried career. Yes, citizens have allowed this by their voting or lack thereof, and those habits. It does not mean we don't stay informed. I agree. But I think it's very important that we have to, I wish public service, elected office was about civic duty. It's not. It's about the money. It's now more about the money, and it's about the power and the control. And that's why they become neo-nobles. They are elitists. They don't care and they don't pay attention. But then again, we're not holding them accountable, and I think that's important. That's what we need. In the 118th Congress, we know it's very clear. Let me show you. This is from CNN. CNN Politics. This was on November 28th. November 28th, 2022. So we've known for a month that in a poll, in several polls from Pew Research, that the American people overall, and I want to find where are these numbers? Here it is. What we know for sure is that 92% of U.S. adults, Democrats and Republicans, want to have action taken to limit the cost of prescription drugs. That 84% of Americans want to have a voting rights law that protects people, that protects our right to vote. This is universal. This is what everyone believes in America. We know that 2/3 support a proposal for Congress to increase the federal aid on states, to states and school districts to increase teacher compensation, to provide a tax credit for tuition at 2-year colleges, to increase tax credits for low-income workers, to increase taxes on those over 500,000, and to increase the production of oil and gas. You know, there's several things that we know and have known that everyone in America uniformly agrees on. And yet none of that is being addressed. We want to have safety. We want our borders to be controlled. No one cares. Our politicians aren't dealing with that. That's a problem. Because we're not focused on these things. So what is the 118th Congress going to do? Are they going to focus on the international policy? No. Is the 118th Congress, are they going to focus on stopping the Iran nuclear deal? No. Are they going to be dealing with the fact that we're seeing Russia and China and Iran act together in concert against the United States? That there is a coalition of governments that are actively trying to take down America and Europe? No. Are they going to be dealing with the corruption in the election system that allows people like George Santos or Elizabeth Warren or Charles Rangel or John Edwards or Joe Biden, for that matter, to be in politics? Are they going to fix that? No. Are they going to try and stop the corruption that comes from politicians knowing that they can stop instantaneously? They can quit their job and become a lobbyist influencing the government. Are they going to address that? No. Is the 118th Congress going to work to make people's lives safer by not dealing with not gun control, but increasing the number of police officers, in making more effective laws? Are they going to be doing that? No. The 118th Congress is going to waste time because they're going to go out there and pass nothing. It is almost universally understood that we are not going to see anything passed by Republicans or Democrats in 2023. We're not going to get effective legislation. We have a stalemate in our government. But that doesn't help anyone. That doesn't move us forward. It doesn't answer the root problems that are causing bigger and bigger issues, not just in the United States, but around the world. And we have to deal with the root problems. Whether or not we like Democrats, whether or not Democrats like us, whether or not progressives can stand anyone, it has to be a compromise. We have to deal with these issues because it is driving our country apart and it is crushing us. So, I'm sorry, I'm looking at some of the comments as we're going. I'm trying to weed out what Larry is trying to put out there to distract people. Now they're talking about reality TV shows. I don't get it. Okay. But the 118th Congress, I hope that some of the members are paying attention to this program to highlight some of the issues that we are seriously seeing that I think we need to really, really nail down. If we don't take control of our borders, illegal immigration is allowing terrorists to come into our nation that are attacking our police, that are trying to attack our government officials, that are destroying our cities. Not all of them, but enough. When you've got 5 million people that you know nothing about, and even if there's only 5,000 criminals in there, that's 5,000 more criminals than we should ever have had. It's making a problem. And if only 50 of them, I mean, how many people did it take to take down the Twin Towers? 2. So you want to tell me that in 5 million, even if there's only 1 or 2 terrorists that get through, that's all it takes. And 3,000 people die. We need to close our borders. I mean, that's a root problem that has a lot of issues attached to it that makes it worse. And to say that, well, that's just racist, that's just sexist, that's just imperialist is stupid. Because first of all, it doesn't address anything, and 2, it's not accurate. We need the 118th Congress to focus on that, to seriously get involved with that aspect. But I don't think we're going to see that because they're looking at entirely different things. We have Democrats who are just looking to try and maintain more power and convince people that everything's okay as long as you just obey. We have Republicans that are out there that are saying, well, don't, you know what, obey us instead. But no one's dealing with the root problem. And that's just one of the big issues. It just drives me nuts. And I know a lot of people want to talk about things like Andrew Tate. They want to talk about Andrew Tate and the fact that he got arrested. They want to talk about the fact that, well, maybe he was involved in human trafficking, which is slavery. By the way, can we just call slavery slavery? We're now in the 21st century. Can we call slavery slavery? We call it human trafficking. We call it sex trafficking, child trafficking. It's slavery. Let's call it what it is. Again, get to the root of it all. It's slavery. There's more slavery around in the world today than there was in the 1800s. That is a fact. It's not a question. It's a fact. In Africa and around the rest of the world, there is slavery. It exists today, and it has never stopped existing in the world. Whether you want to call it human trafficking or sex trafficking or child trafficking, it's all slavery. Let's stop playing games with the words. Let's deal with the root problem, which is slavery. And let's try and solve that problem or minimize that problem at the very least. We did it in America. They did it in the United Kingdom. Europe did it too. We can do it in other countries. But, but people want to talk about the slavery, that Andrew Tate was pushing slavery in Romania. Maybe, kind of, because they don't like him. And you have to ask the question, well, is it because they couldn't silence him? Or is it because he's actually a criminal? Did he actually commit a crime? And why did they let him keep doing this crime if they knew he was committing the crime? Again, it goes back to our core problem. You know the issue's there. Why aren't you doing anything about it? We know there's an issue with inflation. We know there's an issue with a food shortage. We know there's an issue with international policy. We know there's issues. Why aren't we dealing with them? If he was involved in trafficking, that he was involved with human trafficking, why didn't we arrest him sooner? Why was he allowed to continue to do this for years? Let's deal with the core. And by the way, he's a distraction. He got arrested. He's going to get a trial. Done. Why are we talking about Andrew Tate? Because Andrew Tate was on TV and said, oh, I don't agree with the progressive politics. Who cares? It doesn't matter. I don't know. And yes, I agree with you, Mike Bowie. We need to investigate the laptop, but that's because there's a root problem attached to the laptop. It's not about the politics, which is what they're focused on. They're focused on embarrassing Biden for the 2024 election. They're looking at it as a way to embarrass Democrats in 2024 for the elections. Really, the thing is, we need to focus at the root problem of the corruption that is at the core. It's like Ghislaine Maxwell. She's been arrested. We know she was involved with Epstein's Island, child trafficking, sexual assault on that island. Why is there no one looking at her black book and investigating the people that went to that island? Some of them being entertainers, some of them being politicians, some of them being lobbyists that are affecting our government. Why don't we have a list of those people and the investigations done on those people? That's the root problem. Why aren't we addressing that root problem? No, but we're going to talk about Andrew Tate. I don't care about Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate doesn't have an Epstein's Island. Bill Clinton didn't go to Romania to hang out with Bill Tate. Bill Gates didn't go to Romania to hang out with Andrew Tate. They did show up at Epstein's Island. I have a concern about that. Why are we not investigating that when we have the convicted criminal in our jails that can answer these questions and point out what we should be investigating? Am I saying that everyone who went to Epstein's Island knew what was going on and was involved in the criminal actions there? Not necessarily. No, I don't think every single person necessarily knew what was going on and what was the degree of what was happening there. Maybe not. But let's have the investigations. Even if there's one or two people that did know what was happening on Epstein Island and were there for that reason, and they're in government or they influence government right now, we need to investigate those people and get them removed. Why aren't we doing it? Why are we not dealing with that root problem? Instead, we're talking about Andrew Tate. I don't care about Andrew Tate. Dow mentions the investigations into insider trading, exposing special interest corruption, government censorship, and repression. These are core issues that we need to deal with. And that's what I'm talking about here today. That's the conversation I think we need to have in America honestly and openly, without being suppressed, without being told that we're evil. Let's have this conversation. Jen says they don't investigate because it will show how government is involved in trafficking. Then show us that they're involved so we can stop it. We didn't stop slavery, but we did a hell of a job of impeding slavery in America because we looked at it honestly and said, this is wrong, and we're not going to do this. We need to do that again. And I don't care if it's Republicans or Democrats, libertarians, conservatives. I don't care who's involved in it. Get rid of all of them. Not protect them, not put them behind a wall, not distract the public from noticing it. Let's actually deal with it. Because when we don't deal with these problems, like we didn't deal with North Korea, and after a year of 75 missiles being fired at Japan and South Korea, Japan said, okay, then if you're not going to do anything about this, we'll make a military and we'll do something about it. And Japan's now, and that's escalating, as we've heard from South Korea, this is now escalating the entire Southeast Asian area. Everyone's now building militaries and preparing for war. It's because we didn't do anything. It's because we told the American people that's not a problem. Again, it's just like what we showed you in the article talking about this. This is coming from the BBC, not American news, but the BBC said, in America, Washington said, it's not an immediate threat. Japan seems to think it is. South Korea absolutely says it is. Southeast Asia knows it's a problem. But because we're not dealing with it, the problem's getting worse. Because we're not dealing with the root problem, which in this case, if we're talking about with North Korea, that would be China. But we have to deal with these root problems. We have to be honest. And if we don't have a Congress that is being honest and dealing with the root problems, we're not going to see things improve. It's kind of like with your New Year's Eve, New Year's resolutions. Let me ask a question of everyone out there. See what you think. Hang on a second. How many people made New Year's resolutions? I know it's a very popular thing. How many people made New Year's resolutions? Because I would love to hear the 118th Congress make a resolution about what they're going to do. To give the American people a concrete map, Republicans and Democrats, here's our resolution. This is what we're going to do this year. They're not going to do that, but I wish they would. Because we could see, what's the answer? Oh, well, Republicans are going to investigate Hunter Biden. Democrats are going to try and investigate January 6th. And how is that going to solve illegal immigration? How is that going to solve international tensions? How is that going to help with inflation or the food crisis? How is that going to stop crime? They're going to look into investigations into Hunter Biden, and they're going to look into investigations on January 6th. And the root problems aren't going to be addressed or resolved in any way. Hot Chicks has 3 New Year's resolutions. That's good. Jen says they're joking. She hasn't made any New Year's resolutions in decades. No, Jan, you're too young for decades, maybe years. But here's the thing. Why doesn't our government make resolutions? Why don't they resolve and say, we resolve to improve illegal immigration. We resolve to defend our nation. We resolve to improve the safety, the global stability of peace. Mike boy, don't pick on Jan about decades. I told you, it's years. She's being dramatic. She's too young for that. Dow says, it's unlikely that such corruption will be corrected at the governmental level because of those currently in power, would be the ones tasked with relinquishing their status, and populists are still outnumbered. Yes, Jan, I know what your age is. It's fine. I'm being kind. And I agree with you, Dow. It's because there is so much corruption that exists that we all see at every level of government, from every side of government, and we're allowing it to be there. And it's only addressed when it's politically convenient, short term, to try and get more political advantage. And that's a problem. Little Dipper says, yep, stack more medals in my New Year's resolution. Well, I wish we would have, it's not even like, I know so many people get a New Year's resolution that they're going to lose weight or they're going to go to the gym, stuff like that. Our government isn't even giving us superficial resolutions that look to do anything. Yes, I do want to see Hunter Biden We already have the investigation. We don't need another investigation to Hunter Biden. We just need to take action on what's already been done. The FBI already did the investigations. That's why there's 450 charges that are pending. We need Merrick Garland to actually take action. We just need to follow through. We don't need to spend God knows how many tens of millions of dollars for the next year for Congress to investigate Hunter Biden to come up with the same conclusion we already have. We already have the solution. We need the intestinal fortitude to move forward. And that's the thing about resolutions. It's about intestinal fortitude to move forward, to make it happen. If you want to go to the gym every day, then get off your butt and go to the gym. It's not about the New Year's resolution. You could do it at any time. It's about you making the commitment and doing it and following through. Again, it goes back to the core of the problem. The core of the problem is you're lazy. Many of us are lazy, so you don't go to the gym because that takes work and effort. And you're too lazy to go and do the work and effort. That's why you don't go to the gym. And that's why you'll get a membership, and why I think it's something like 60% of the memberships at gyms, they increase in January, and 60% of them are never used because people are lazy. Because at the core, the problem is you're lazy. It's not the gym. It's not the exercise. It's that you just don't want to do it. Well, deal with the core problem. Get off your butt and do it. You want to lose weight? You can. Now, how much weight? That's a different question. There's lots of reasons why you may only lose a little bit of weight or a lot of weight, but everyone can lose some amount of weight. You can do it, but that means you don't eat food, and you don't eat the foods you like. It's that simple. It's not a hard thing, but it takes you dealing with the core problem. You like food, you like sugary foods or foods that aren't good for you, or you like foods and you don't exercise because you don't like exercise because you're lazy. Deal with the core problem. And Little Dipper says, there is no set amount to stack as long as I'm continuing to stack is what counts. In terms of his or her, I don't remember Little Dipper if you're a guy or girl, doesn't matter, what their resolution is. Dow says, that's why legislation from Liberty First is important. It promotes civic involvement. Well, that's the whole point of why I wrote this. And this is what, and by the way, I've said it before, this is something that I wrote. The Liberty First Foundation is helping to make sure that I didn't miss anything. They're helping to make sure that we can get this out to all 537 members of Congress. And that is going to happen hopefully this month. It's a matter of money and time. But we're going to get this out to all of them. Every single member of Congress. This is going out to them. This is serious. We're going to send it out to every single one of them. I will show you the receipts when we send it out to each and every member of Congress so that you can go to your state representative and say, okay, I know you got this. I saw the receipt that it was sent to you. What are you doing about it? Because we have to get off our butts. Because we have to do something. It's not just enough. There's a lot of stuff I do behind the scenes that I don't put my name to. There's a lot of stuff that I do privately in the local community, but it's not enough. So I'm as much at fault as anyone else. I have to get up and do something. Well, this is what I'm doing. This is part of what I'm doing to be more active. In 2023, we have to deal with the core issues, whether that's on an individual level, which means get off your butt and go to the gym, or if it's on our national level, which means we ask questions of our politicians and we demand that they give us answers. Because the benefit is long term. You're not going to see it. We become so instant gratification. We become so, oh, well, I did this, so there should be a immediate result. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. If you get off the butt and go to the gym once, you're not instantly going to have a body like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Gal Gadot. It's not going to happen overnight. It's a long-term process. You have to work at it. And you're not going to see results immediately, but you have to do it. If you want to get to that long-term result, you have to deal with those core issues. And if you deal with that, you will be better off. I'll give you a personal example. I smoke cigarettes. It is a core personal problem. Now, some people say, well, that's because you're addicted to nicotine. No, it's not. It's not a nicotine addiction. It's not the psychosomatic, I'm used to doing things while I smoke cigarettes. That's why I do that. No. Because I'm lazy. It's because maybe someone would even say, well, you're weak-willed because you're addicted to cigarettes. Okay, I can't argue that. But see, that's a core issue. Got to deal with it. Even if it's just in saying, well, no, I like smoking cigarettes and I just live with it. But at least that's addressing the issue. It's not hiding from the issue. If you're eating nothing but cake every day and you're saying, well, I want to lose weight, deal with the fact that you like eating cake and go from there. There's your first thing. If we want to say, well, we need to help fix the economy in America, well, the first thing you have to do is say, we spend too much money. We increased by 20 times. We are sending Pakistan $200 million. In 2020, we gave them $10 million. And it didn't fix the problem. We wanted them to become woke. We wanted Pakistan to be as woke as California. And we gave them $10 million to teach them gender studies. It didn't work. Now we're going to give them $200 million to tell them to be woke like California. Meanwhile, they are looking at California. They're looking at Hollywood. They're seeing these crazy, messed up individuals. They're seeing that state fail at every level, economically, socially. It's a complete failure. You can give them $1 billion. They're not going to do it because there's no reason to. So why are we bothering? The core problem is we're spending money that we don't. We're spending $200 million on Pakistan that we could use to feed. You tell me that, the same people who say, well, we need gender studies in Pakistan are the same people who tell me we need to feed the poor kids in America. Well, take the money, stop giving Pakistan money. Stop giving them money and let's deal with the core problem of the kids who are starving here in the United States. Fantastic. I'm all for that. Let's take the $200 million and feed the poor kids. I'm happy with that. Let's do that. If we got to spend the money, I'd rather spend it on the poor kids in America who are starving, not gender studies in Pakistan. I could care less about that. Let's deal with the core problem in the United States. Because there is no core problem about gender studies in Pakistan. They don't want it. If they wanted it, they'd already be doing it. That's not something they're interested in. Selling them on the idea with hundreds of millions of dollars is not going to change that. Because if they wanted to change that, they would do it. It wouldn't cost anything. They would just do it. So trying to bribe them into it isn't helping. What that is a waste of money. God knows, I think they're buying off the Pakistani government and elements of it with this money that I am sure will go to everything except gender studies. And I think that's just the cover story to explain why we're giving them $200 million. That being said, that's just a guess. But we're not dealing with any root problems by giving Pakistan $200 million. We are dealing with a root problem if we use $200 million to feed the poor in America. And we'd probably be doing even better if we didn't spend $200 million in the first place. Because that's creating inflation, which makes things more expensive So poor people are disproportionately hurt more by inflation than any other group. So let's deal with the core issue. Now, Mike Bowie mentions, and I've been talking about back and forth about the laptop, the Hunter Biden laptop, which we were told initially was fake, and now we know is true, says it goes all the way back to the Obama administration and President Obama, where, well, Hunter Biden was around Obama because Biden was around Obama. He was vice president then. So, yeah, it goes back to the Obama administration. It's always been evident. Little Dipper says, I plan to do more walking, not a New Year's resolution, though. I find New Year's resolutions to be a bit cliche. They are. Little Dipper says, I donate locally, go to community functions. I never donate money to giant global foundations except Plan Canada. Hopefully, the kid I sponsor ends up with a good education. That's a fantastic thing. I support all of that you said there, Little Dipper, because you're getting up and doing something. You're doing something, and you're addressing core issues, core problems, honestly, with the understanding of, well, you know, here's the problems with that. We need more of that. Dow says that when Bill Gates starts promoting energy drinks as the main source of hydration for big agro, you know we are on neck deep in idiocracy. Well, that's true. Bill Gates is promoting energy drinks? I didn't see that. Is he doing that now? That's stupid. Dow mentions that local is the way to go. Faster reaction to issues and better solutions on a case-by-case basis. In terms of politics, I absolutely agree with you on that, but we can't lose focus of the larger scale as well, because they all feed into each other. And we could probably do better fixing our local issues if we weren't so busy wasting our time on these hopes and dreams and experiments like Pakistan and gender studies. I truly believe that. Which is, again, why I would love to hear the government, the House of Representatives, the Senate, to come out with a New Year's resolution. This is what we want to do. This is what we're going to do for America. This is what we're going to work on for America. Because they don't have a plan right now. They're not trying to stop gun control or reduce the number of gun control laws in America, which we desperately need. They're not trying to fix the food crisis, which has not been addressed anywhere in the major news media, even though 30% less food exists in the world today. That is a fact. It's not a question. It's not a guess. They're not trying to reduce the amount of spending, which would lower the amount of inflation in America. I mean, we just voted on the omnibus bill. We spent $1.7 trillion. And I guarantee you, that's not the end of that. They're going to spend more between January 1st and October. They're going to spend billions, if not trillions more. We're spending $6 trillion a year. Why? Why are we spending all that money? Because we don't have a roadmap. We don't have a resolution. We as a nation are not resolved in our goals because we don't know what our goals are anymore. We don't have goals anymore. And that's why we're letting all these things just happen, and people are telling us, don't worry, it's all okay. Why the hell should I believe any of them when we hear the government say, it's okay, it's fine? Biden says, oh, don't worry about inflation, it's all okay. The economy is better than you think it is. No, it's not. And just because you know, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they don't have the stones, the ability to stand up and say, the economy's bad. And we're going to fix it. And here's the plan to fix it. And you're not going to like it. We're going to spend less money on everything. That will help lower inflation. And in the long term, that will help you. It will make the country stronger. You're not going to like it. We're going to do it anyway. Why can't they do that? Dow says that, yes, we're acting locally would be better with financial resources too if the government would stop stripping our wealth individually for redistribution to pork barrel projects. That's why I'm so upset about that. Because it is redistributing our money and wasting it. And it doesn't help anyone. It's to no one's benefit. I don't know. But again, anyone can call in at any time to 607 242 9247 and tell me why you think I'm wrong. If you think I'm wrong. If you think I've made a mistake. By the way, I should mention, later today, 8 o'clock tonight, I will be interviewed by, it's not an interview I'm doing, I'm going to be interviewed by Ricky Paget. He's a former sheriff, North Carolina, and we're going to be talking about a few issues today. People can check it out. It'll be on Facebook, I think on YouTube as well. I've spoken with him before in the past about the 2022 election. He's a nice guy. I'm looking forward to doing that. That'll be at 8 o'clock tonight, Eastern Standard Time. So I'm looking forward to that. So I did want to mention that because I had forgotten about it and wanted to bring that up to you. So it's all about resolutions. It's all about having the willingness to deal with the core issues, to identify what the issue is, and to actually address that issue, even if it's unpleasant. To actually have a plan and a goal, and to work towards that, even though it takes effort, even though it may not be fun, even if other people don't like it. Because what we're doing now is just distraction, a bunch of distraction. Don't pay attention to how things are falling apart all around us. No, you've got to have bail reform. Yeah, but it doesn't work. Well, don't pay attention to that part. Oh, we got to spend money on gender studies, but it's not effective. Yeah, but don't pay attention to that part. It's increasing inflation by doing that. Yeah, but don't pay attention to that part. Oh, we got to get rid of George Santos. Yeah, but what about the other corrupt politicians too? If you want to get rid of George Santos because he's lied to the American people, let's get rid of Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren. Charles Rangel is gone now. But there are so many other politicians that we can point to. Let's get rid of all of them. Why don't we get rid of all of them? Oh, but you can't get rid of all of them. Why not? Why not? Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they've all lied to the American people repeatedly sometimes on the same issue. Let's get rid of them. Sheila Jackson Lee has lied about gun control nonstop for decades. Let's get rid of her. She's doing the same thing that George Santos is doing. But George Santos is a problem. And Sheila Jackson Lee, no, she's okay. She lied to Americans to their faces about what the AR-15 is, what kind of bullet it fires, how much does it weigh, what kind of damage or threat that it presents to the American people. She's lied consistently and been called out for those lies consistently. No one cares. But George Santos, he's a problem. Really? They're all a problem. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Okay, so we're a little bit everywhere today. And if this is the first time that you're seeing the channel, you've made it this far, you're like, you hit on a bunch of good points, but Mike, you're a little bit everywhere. I understand. New Year's Eve, a little tired, a little bit of a hangover. So I understand. And I know the audio, not perfect. We're improving it. Still trying to figure out the problem. It's somewhere in OBS. I can't figure out where. But I'm working on it to fix this and to be able to go better. I want you to know that on this channel, I have made the resolution that we are going to try and always present you the very best that we can. to point out issues that are affecting all of us around the world, to look at it from an international and a domestic level, because those two things are interrelated, that we are always going to try and strive to provide you with as much information as we can in our understanding as best as we have it, so that you can make the best decisions in your life. Whether you agree with us or not, that's okay. You're not required to agree with everything that we believe on this channel. That's perfectly okay. Maybe you think the Andrew Tate issue is massive. Fantastic. Follow that. Talk about that. That's okay. Maybe you think George Santos is the most important issue facing American politics right now. Fantastic. Follow up on that. Maybe you think that some of the things we're talking about are bigger issues. Let's deal with that. Because if we don't, well, we're going to be left making this kind of noise. Yeah, that's, by the way, that's the Wilhelm scream. I've had that for years and I never used it. Never found a reason to use it, so I wanted to do that at least once. If you're wondering what the Wilhelm scream is, it's in entertainment. It's like the most famous scream in sound effects. It's all over Star Wars. Everyone uses it. Never found a reason to use it, so I figured I'd throw it in there. I don't know. I care. I care so much, which is why I'm so passionate. Why we see so many are trying to suppress the channel, to suppress your voices, to stop the conversations that we see in the chat that have been going on with so many people. Why they're trying to distract you, like we saw Larry trying to distract, try and take people away from the conversation that's being held, to not actually let us focus on the issues in front of us. We're seeing that things are hard, but that means it's worthwhile. Everything that you have done in life that has been hard, I'd like to say that all of it has had a benefit. Somewhere in there, you may not notice it right away, but at the end of the day, when you look back and say, you know what, and that helped. When I was homeless, which is no surprise, I've talked about it many times, and I advocate, and I'm an advocate about homelessness and trying to resolve that. And so when I was homeless, that was a very difficult time in my life, but it was worthwhile because I got through that hardship so that today I can try and help others to never have to go through that hardship, to show them that there is a way out of that, that there is a path forward. Same thing with our government. It's difficult. We're facing a lot of hardships, but that gives us the opportunity to get through them by being honest about what the hardship is, what the cause of it is, and how to resolve that so that we don't have to do that again. And I hope that the 118th Congress will resolve that and we will get through that. And I hope that every week, as we go forward, when we have the various interviews on the show, like last year we were talking to Matt Brainerd, great guy, enjoyed that conversation. We were talking to people like Marcus Williams, who is running for the 137th district in Rochester, which was removed by YouTube because two black men can't talk about conservative politics, apparently. Unwritten rule. Who knew? We're going to try and do more of that this year. And you're right, Dow. Hard living makes a body resilient if you can survive it. And overwhelmingly, you can survive it. You can. You don't need alcohol. You don't need drugs. You don't need to abuse other people. You can do it. It's just difficult. But that's the whole point. That's the whole point of it. All right. It's the new year. I'm a little tired. And I always enjoy speaking with everyone here. But I want to take a moment to Well, just to say thank you, always, to each and every one of you, because you guys, you make it all worthwhile. I know you've heard it before. What difference does it? You make the difference when you watch, chat, tweets, your likes and shares, and your subscription. You make the difference. From across the world, you help us to keep the lights on and the stream alive. You are making the difference to fight the woke and the crazy legislation that we see before. We at No Soundbites Allowed, and I want to thank you for everything that you do in helping us reach our goal, and your likes, your tweets, your comments, and your subscriptions to the channel. We want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. And this is a special thank you to those who have donated to the channel and helped us in all of our efforts. We will strive to make this channel the best that we possibly can, because you deserve no less. Thank you. So, I thank you all, and we'll be updating that for the new year, and the fact that we've got over 1,000 subscribers and we're looking to continue to grow. And we know that there's a lot of suppression out there. The Twitter files have made it very clear. They made it very obvious to us, between Mark Zuckerberg admitting that he's been working hand in hand with the FBI. The fact that we know that Twitter has been working hand in hand with the FBI, that they have been suppressing people's voices, that they have been shutting down large and small voices to control what you hear and what you get to say and what you get to think. We know it's difficult, but that makes it all the more worthwhile. And that's part of our resolution to you, that we're going to be here every Sunday, that we're going to go through and talk about these issues and hear your voices from across the world about all these things that are affecting us. Because we're not going to resolve the problems in Japan and the problems in South Korea by taking the advice of the Biden administration and saying, well, it's all good. There's no problem. It's not an issue. That's not fixing things. We're not going to make the world safer by ignoring what's happening with Iran and making the Iran nuclear deal and giving them a bunch more money for even more global terrorism. We're not going to help people in the United States by funding more, or rather taking away the bail reform or the no cash bail. We're not going to help anyone when we take that away. When we see that the result is that creates even more crime, sometimes even more violent crime. We're not going to protect anyone by putting out more and more laws and gun control that affect only law-abiding citizens and do absolutely nothing to restrict any of the criminals or any criminal actions, and in fact endanger people's lives by denying them the opportunity to protect themselves. We're not going to do anything if we stay silent and we don't take action and we don't actually try to be better. Realistically, effectively better. Not just, oh, here's something I'll just put out, I said this and yay, it's on TikTok, and I put a hashtag out and did nothing else. Not enough. We can't live like that. It's not working. But I want to take a little break. I got to get ready I got to prep and try and take a nap and get ready for my conversation with Ricky Paget, which will be happening later today. At 8 p.m., I will be on with him live. He will be interviewing me, which is kind of fun. I don't get interviewed that often. Well, I do and I don't. So it'll be fun to be able to have that interview to talk about some of the issues going forward. And I'm looking forward to being on his program. I hope other people will check it out. I think I have a Facebook link on it that I've already published. But most of all, to start this year, I want to say I know there's problems, like the audio. There's always problems. There's always something to fix. There's always something to work on. And you guys, by just even being in the audience, whether you donate or not, that's okay. And I hope you subscribe. I really do. I hope and pray that you'll subscribe because we could use the help and to have more subscribers. But just being part of the audience, just listening to us, just being in there, whether you call in or not, whether you leave a comment or not, you guys make it all worthwhile. So I really appreciate that. No, thank you, Mike. Thank you for your comments and being around. And I know it's the January 1st. Everyone's got hangovers. Everyone's tired from New Year's Eve. It's a Sunday. There's football games going on. I know. And that's why I appreciate each and every one of you so much. And that's why I do this every week. But with that said, some weeks we go a little shorter than others. This week we're going to have a little bit of shorter of a conversation. But next week we'll be back. Maybe we'll talk longer. We'll talk about more issues. We'll talk about more things that you're concerned about. And you'll call in and you'll leave your text, and we'll be happy to be here. Because we'll be here every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Because we love you. We respect you. You're adults. You're intelligent. You're not a checkbox. You're an individual. And we respect you as the individuals that you are. And I want you to have a great new year. Even the people who absolutely hate what I have to say, including the people who disagree with everything that we talk about and all the information, I want you all to have a great new year. I want you all to have success in your life. Every single one of you. And I hope that comes true. I really do. Folks, I thank you. I want you to be well. And I'll talk to you next week, as well as we'll be having more videos throughout the week. But we'll see you next week, Sunday, at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.